July 1967. The Soviet Union rolls out what appears to be an unstoppable new fighter. Western intelligence agencies scramble to assess the threat. The MiG-25 Foxbat, with its massive twin tails, enormous engines, and rumors of advanced lightweight construction. It looks like nothing the West has ever seen. And when the Soviets begin posting new world records for speed and altitude, the message is clear. American air superiority is under threat. We currently have no fighter in our operational inventory that could consistently, if successfully, combat the Foxbat. But the alarm bells ringing over the MiG-25 weren't the only problem facing the United States Air Force. Because thousands of kilometers away in the skies over Vietnam, American pilots were learning a harsh lesson about the future of air combat. The F-4 Phantom was supposed to represent the cutting edge of fighter technology. Fast, missile-laden, and equipped with powerful radar, it was built on the assumption that future air battles would be fought beyond visual range. Dogfighting, military planners believed, was a relic of the past. Vietnam proved them catastrophically wrong. The chaos of Southeast Asian airspace made long-range identification nearly impossible. Pilots were forced to close in and visually confirm targets before engaging. The F-4's sophisticated missiles, designed for large, high-altitude bombers, proved hopelessly unreliable against nimble MiG fighters. Initially, only 14% ever hit their targets. And when those missiles failed, F-4 pilots faced a terrifying reality. Their fighter had no gun for close combat. The more agile MiG-17 and MiG-21s exploited this weakness ruthlessly. They drew the heavier, less maneuverable Phantoms into turning fights where the American jets, with their notoriously smoky engines, became easy prey. American pilots were being shot down at alarming rates. The age of the dogfight was far from over, and the Air Force needed a solution. Fast. Stopgap measures helped. Externally mounted gun pods were added to the F-4. Pilots received emergency training in close-quarters combat, but these were temporary fixes for a fundamental problem. The United States needed a dedicated air superiority fighter, not an interceptor forced into the fighter role, not a multi-role compromise, a pure air-to-air dominance machine. And now, with the Soviet MiG-25 threatening to upset the balance of power entirely, there was no time to waste. In 1968, the Air Force issued a challenge to America's top aircraft manufacturers: design the ultimate air superiority fighter. For the first time, proposals would be evaluated using a revolutionary new concept called energy maneuverability theory. This mathematical framework assessed a fighter's total combat performance by analyzing the relationship between speed, thrust, drag, and weight. It was a way to predict exactly how a fighter would perform in the violent high-G maneuvers of the real combat. The competition was fierce. But in December 1969, McDonnell Douglas won the contract. Their design was the product of 2.5 million man-hours of engineering, a clean-sheet approach to tactical air dominance. The F-15 Eagle. At its heart were two Pratt & Whitney afterburning turbofans capable of producing a combined 48,000 pounds of thrust. This wasn't just powerful, it was revolutionary. The F-15 could accelerate through the speed of sound while climbing vertically. Its thrust-to-weight ratio exceeded 1:1, meaning the engines alone could overcome the aircraft's weight without any aerodynamic lift. Top speed, Mach 2.5, the fastest fighter jet ever produced by the United States. But raw speed was only part of the equation. The engines featured variable geometry air intakes controlled by a sophisticated computer system. As the F-15 accelerated or maneuvered, the intakes automatically adjusted to ensure optimal airflow. This meant maximum performance at any speed, any altitude, any angle of attack. Where the F-4 Phantom had sacrificed wing area for high-speed performance, the F-15 took a different approach. Large, fixed wings provided low wing loading. Combined with that incredible thrust-to-weight ratio, the result was superior maneuverability across the entire flight envelope. The F-15 could turn with smaller, lighter fighters while maintaining energy. And when things got slow and close, it could simply point its nose and accelerate away. The cockpit was designed for total situational awareness. Mounted high in the fuselage with a bubble canopy, the pilot enjoyed an unobstructed 360-degree view. A heads-up display projected critical flight and weapons data directly in the pilot's line of sight, fully integrated with the aircraft's radar and avionics. The pilot never had to look down at instruments during combat. For armament, 8 missiles could be carried, a mix of radar-guided AIM-7 Sparrows for beyond visual range engagements and heat-seeking AIM-9 Sidewinders for close-in fighting. The missiles were mounted on stations under the wings and along the fuselage, minimizing drag while maximizing weapon load. And unlike the early F-4, the F-15 came equipped from day one with an internal M61 Vulcan cannon. 6,000 rounds per minute of 20mm devastation for when the fight turned desperate. Survivability was built into every aspect of the design. Triple redundant hydraulic systems meant battle damage to 1 or even 2 systems wouldn't prevent the pilot from bringing the jet home. The airframe was reinforced to absorb punishment. Flight control systems were positioned to minimize vulnerability to ground fire and missile fragments. The F-15 wasn't just fast and agile. Well, it was built to survive. The first prototype rolled out in June 1972, just 3 years after the contract was awarded. Then came the moment of truth. Could this new fighter actually deliver on its promise? The Air Force put the F-15 through an exhaustive test program, pitting it against the best fighters in the American inventory. Against the F-4 Phantom, the aircraft it was designed to replace, the F-15 looked dominant. The heavier interceptor simply couldn't match the Eagle's combination of speed and maneuverability. Even the smaller, lighter F-5 Tiger, used to simulate Soviet MiG fighters, struggled against the larger F-15. Time and again, in engagement after engagement, the Eagle demonstrated overwhelming superiority. Beyond visual range or knife fight close, the F-15 controlled the battle space. The Air Force had a winner, but they weren't done making a statement. In January 1975, barely a year after the Soviets posted new time-to-climb records with the MiG-25, an F-15 was prepared for a record attempt of its own. Engineers stripped a pre-production aircraft of every non-essential component. Even the paint was removed to save weight. In the frigid, dense air of Grand Forks, North Dakota, the Eagle launched into a series of timed climbs. From a standing start on the runway, it rocketed skyward, punching through altitude after altitude. 30,000 meters, right to the edge of the stratosphere. The F-15 didn't just break the MiG-25's records, it obliterated them by more than 25%. By 1974, the F-15 was already in mass production. Over 400 early A and B model Eagles were ordered for the Air Force, and America's allies immediately recognized the jet's capabilities. Israel became the first foreign operator in 1976, followed by Japan and Saudi Arabia. F-15s were deployed to air bases in West Germany, right on the Soviet Union's doorstep. It seemed inevitable that the Eagle would eventually face the MiG-25 in combat, but when that confrontation finally came, it revealed a truth that shocked Western intelligence agencies. In September 1976, Lieutenant Viktor Belenko, a 29-year-old Soviet pilot, made a fateful decision. He would defect to the West, and he would do it by flying his MiG-25 from a Soviet airbase to a civilian airport in Japan. For the first time, American engineers could examine the legendary Fox Bat up close. What they discovered changed everything. The MiG-25 wasn't the agile superfighter they'd feared. It was built almost entirely from heavy nickel-steel alloy, weighing nearly twice as much as an F-15. Those large wings weren't for maneuverability. They were needed just to get the massive jet airborne. Maximum G-loading, 4.5. The F-15 could pull nearly twice that. The enormous engines consumed fuel at a staggering rate, giving the MiG-25 a combat radius of just 300 kilometers. Its avionics used outdated vacuum tubes. Its radar lacked look-down capability, meaning it couldn't even detect an F-15 flying below its horizon. The MiG-25 was a pure high-altitude interceptor designed to catch American bombers at extreme speeds. But in a dogfight with an F-15, it didn't stand a chance. The Soviets had successfully propagandized the Foxbat's capabilities for nearly a decade. Now it was their turn to panic. Because in 1976, the Soviet Union had no fighter that could survive an engagement with an F-15 Eagle. The F-15 scored its first kills in 1979, when Israeli pilots downed 4 Syrian MiG-21s in a single engagement. It was the beginning of an unprecedented combat record. Over Lebanon, the Persian Gulf, and the Balkans, F-15s dominated every adversary they encountered. Today, the F-15 Eagle has achieved more than 104 confirmed air-to-air victories. Without a single loss in air combat, no fighter in history can match that record. The Eagle evolved over the decades. C and D models improved range, payload, and weapon systems. The F-15 E-Strike Eagle transformed the air superiority fighter into a devastating ground attack platform, leveraging the jet's superior speed, range, and payload capacity for precision strike missions. Nearly half a century after its first flight, the F-15 remains essential to American air power. The F-15EX, a thoroughly modernized variant, began deliveries in 2021, replacing aging F-15C models with advanced avionics, electronic warfare systems, and the ability to carry hypersonic weapons. The F-15 Eagle emerged from the failures of Vietnam and the fears sparked by Soviet propaganda. It became the fighter that redefined air superiority, undefeated, unmatched, the greatest air superiority fighter ever built.